turns out it cost a shitload of money to try to figure out. I had no access to like venture capitalists or like any of these things.
How long did you last at that before you were like, no, I'm out of here?
I just had no understanding of how you raise money or even about it. But we ended up building it. It's very, very powerful. I don't know how to live without creating. The more boring it is, the better. I would be distraught if I wasn't able to create. Like an incredibly short amount of time. Building technology is like a paintbrush for me. I think at the time though, phones were so interesting. Like now they become so unbelievably boring. There's nothing new. We drain our bank accounts down to like 0. And we end up basically having to fire everyone. And there's also all these interesting things that never really came to light that we pitched people on. I basically burned my money down to nothing.
Josh, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Liam.
I am really excited to jump into a bunch of things today. I'm excited to talk about Incued. I'm excited to talk about the exit. I'm really excited to talk about Spinout. But let's take a step back for a second. I was doing my research on you beforehand, and it turns out that we have somewhat of a similar background in terms of our first jobs. We both worked in meat departments within a grocery chain, and we both sold phones as well. Like, tell me about your kind of first jobs and your experiences there.
So I worked at Mariana's is like this. It's like not as good as a Whole Foods, but it's better than like a normal grocery store. So anyhow, I went in there. I did not want to work in the meat department. Very first job. I'm like, I want to be in the bakery. And they send me back there. And then my job ended up being cleaning blood off the walls, helping the butchers break down animals, put sausage the stuff through the sausage machine into the casing, which is like, I didn't even know was lamb intestine at the time, or it's pork intestine, whatever, putting them all in the cases. I learned how to cook really well. We had this like grill where like people could like come in, see a piece of meat, and we'd like cook it in front of them, which always resulted in like people coming from like the local gym and ordering like 30 chicken thighs that I have to make them. So yeah, it was wild, but it was super fun.
Interesting. How long did you last at that before you were like, no, I'm out of here?
I lasted a little over a year. I have a wild story about why I left, actually.
I love a wild story.
Yeah, I had so I live in Chicago, and I had a guy that transferred from doing carts at the grocery store to working in the meat department with us. He got like $2 extra an hour. He was really buzzed about it. And he got into this argument with this older guy that was working with us about the Blackhawks. And this argument escalated to the point where he apparently was very into airsoft, if you're familiar with this is. And he threatened the other man with a grenade, which turned anyhow. So I'm like team lead. I have to call. This is a very ridiculous situation. I end up having to call the manager. I have no idea what to do. They end up calling the police, like giant police presence in the grocery store. Ends up the guy has a literal flashbang grenade on him. Lots of questioning. And then I thought the guy would get like fired because it caused like a giant panic. And because it was a union, they just moved him back to carts. And I was like, F this. Like, this is ridiculous. Then off to Best Buy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm from Scotland, so I'm not used to people bringing grenades in and then somehow keeping their job. That's insane.
This is a nice neighborhood. This is like...
Alright, my story is not even remotely as interesting as that. I was 19 at the point. I think I'd done 6 months as a butcher, and I just remember coming in hungover in the morning at like 5 a.m. is when we would start as well, like 2 hours sleep from the night before and just cutting up dead animals. And at a certain point I was like, no, I give up. So not as many grenades in my story. It was more a tale of I couldn't be bothered and didn't want to cut up dead animals anymore. But I feel you.
Yeah, dude, you know the good news is you got all your fingers. Do you have any coworkers that like had incidents there?
I've sliced the top of my thumb off as well. Like, there's a good part of my thumb that had to get like sewed back on, so I've got a huge scar here because I wasn't wearing the metal glove and how you're supposed to wear the glove. I was just like, I'm 19. Like, obviously, I'm never gonna fucking cut my thumb off.
Yeah. Dude, there's so many. I like, it's crazy. It was like 3 people I worked with had like similar things to that.
Yeah. I mean, it's just a lack of common sense is what it is. But yeah. But tell me about Best Buy. So I also come from a background, like my first actual job was 14. I was like collecting glasses in a pub, but my first job where I was actually getting paid with a paycheck was working in a phone store called Carphone Warehouse. I don't know if you remember this in the UK.
Vaguely, it's like a Radio Shack.
Okay, exactly. So that was my background, 16 years old, all the way through to like 21, was just like selling phones and contracts, stuff like that. And I thought for me, it really taught me a lot about sales. It taught me a lot about working with people, psychology, stuff like that. Tell me about your experience.
Yeah, I think it was relatively similar. Like, I was kind of, I wouldn't say I was an anxious kid, but I was a self-conscious kid. But I was charismatic while being self-conscious, which I guess is a combination you can have. So yeah, I mean, we sold phones. I don't know. People liked it. I was just more enthusiastic about the technology. Generally, like I'm a big nerd. So
Okay.
I don't even think I wasn't even remotely selling correctly. I was more just going up to people and being really excited about things, and that converted into sales. Because I wanted to talk. I think at the time, though, phones were so interesting. Like now, they've become so unbelievably boring. There's nothing new. But at the time, you're like, wow, like this is really, really innovative, really, really different. Um, and I did remarkably well at it, where I ended up getting like scouted by Samsung directly to like represent them when I was really young. Um, so then instead of like working at a Best Buy, I was like managing a territory of stores on behalf of Samsung to like make sure their products were well represented and whatnot, which it paid.
Hmm.
I mean, it paid like $20 something an hour, which was pretty sick at that time.
And the reason you were so good at it, the reason that they wanted you is because of your genuine enthusiasm for the technology.
Yeah, I thought it was awesome. So like,
Okay.
it's like I think I got good at actual sales much later in life. And
Mm.
at the time, I had no concept of like any kind of sales methodology. But I think it actually ended up. It's probably a better customer experience, like realistically, because you actually want to engage with them. You're not actually focused on a sale whatsoever. You're just focused
Yeah.
on learning. And so I ended up creating this like not creating, but rather implementing this whole thing about like older people coming into these stores and learning how the phones worked, and which helped convert older people into being comfortable with buying smartphones and whatnot.
Okay. What era of phones was this? Are we talking when there was like new designs coming out and we had like flip screens and stuff like that? Were we like early iPhones? Like when exactly was this? What era of phones was this?
Like Galaxy S2, Galaxy S3, I guess it'd be like iPhone 4, I
Yep.
think. Yeah.
Yeah, there were still exciting things happening at that point, right? I remember Sony Ericsson's coming out with new designs every year, just absolutely loving it.
Oh yeah, like it was crazy. Like the first waterproof phone, or not, whatever. They weren't fully waterproof, but like just being able to show that you could dunk it in water and it would still work. Or like, I remember like AirPlay. Like it was really incredible for people to think about like, oh, you could put like a PowerPoint on your phone and then display it on the TV, like life changing. Like,
Mm.
my phone is remote. And there's also all these interesting things that never really came to light that we pitched people on. Like I was thinking about this is in like later half of it, but there was like a hub that you could have your Android phone on that would convert a monitor into like a light Chromebook. Chromebooks, I guess Chromebooks did exist at that point, or they were starting to exist. It was like an Android tablet, but with a mouse. And I've always wondered why that never materialized, right? Um, but so it was just an innovative time. People were really throwing ideas against the wall, and it was fascinating.
Talk to me about that. If you had such a genuine curiosity and interest, where did that lead you over the next 10 years? From what I understand, you spent kind of 7 years in corporate America, and then during COVID, you decided to kind of start your own ventures. Like, tell me a bit about the story of where your curiosity has led you up until now.
I don't actually know if it was 7 years. I think it was shorter.
Shorter?
Yeah, I think so by a lot. Yeah, I don't know. Like eventually, I moved to Chicago, and I just like way back when, like I started like programming and futzing around on computers when I was like 13. My grandpa was really big into soldering and these kind of things, and so that's where the interest kind of came from. But so I knew I wanted to work in technology, and I studied software engineering originally. But so I emailed like it wasn't even email. I made a LinkedIn account, and I ended up in messaging every single CEO of a tech startup I could find in the city. Until this guy Paulo, he responded. Amazing guy. Exited founder from Brazil. He moved to the United States after his exit and he was making a new company called Supply Mind. It was like big data analytics for healthcare supply chains. And it was just him and his co-founder in an office that they had out of like a shared office space. It's like 3 people. And I think I was like 19 or 20. And I would just spend every day working for them. Like they said yes, and I got paid $20 an hour. I had no concept of equity or ownership or any of these things, but I would do anything they needed to. So maybe it was an SQL database, maybe it was making posters for a conference, maybe it was cold calling people. But I would just go to school, and then I would go work at their office, and then I would come home, and I would stay up until, I don't know, 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning, some nights doing work. And my life was effectively like school, maybe the gym, and then work. And luckily I lived with some friends and stuff like that, but that's maybe the start.
Why do you think he said yes? Like, what was it about you that made him go, yeah, let's have him here?
I don't know. I ended up contacting him way later to thank him because I didn't think I was like the world's best intern. Since I've had interns, I realized I would have hired me actually, but like but I don't know. But I don't know how many people were like doing the kind of outreach I was doing to get those kind of jobs at specifically those kind of companies. So it might have just been that. And this is also how I got my first corporate jobs too, is like I just messaged the people. I don't think I've ever formally applied for a job since Best Buy.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Me too. Any job that I've ever gotten has been a result of like a portfolio of work that I've put out there onto the internet, and then use that as the credibility to then just email someone and ask for an opportunity.
Yeah.
That's how I got started in AI. Like me and my co-founders met on Twitter. We put up a post one day and I just DM'd them, and then we started working together from there. So
yeah,
obviously that can't work for everyone, because I do think about this, like as the job market's changing and stuff. Obviously, this is great advice if you want to get very unique jobs, but not everyone can do that, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it worked in the corporate world too. Like to your point, like, what do you want me to talk about? What I ended up doing there, or what do you want? Yeah.
Tell me about the corporate jobs, and I'm curious. You seem very enthused about a lot of the things you do. Was there any points that you didn't enjoy the corporate jobs you were doing? Was there any points where you didn't feel so enthused?
Yeah, well, I mean, coming out of college, I actually scrubbed it for my resume. I worked for Sprint very briefly in their corporate offices right out of school. And the corporation was like collapsing in on itself. And it was one of the most toxic, I mean, this company doesn't exist, but it was a very toxic environment. And I was very disillusioned and I hated it. And so that was like the bottom of it. But then I ended up applying for, there's a company called Motorola Solutions. A lot of people think Motorola is like a cell phone company, but it's not. The cell phone company is not the main company. And that's now was bought by Google and Lenovo, all these things. So they're an intelligence security. They promote themselves, I think, as a public safety company. Police, law enforcement, these kind of things. But yeah, I mean, I would say broadly working in a corporation is unbelievably boring. I found that I was doing my work really, really, really quickly. And then I ended up just kind of getting into the mess of like doing things I probably shouldn't have been doing, which led me down working on like federal security projects and like really interesting things. Which it ultimately got me quite ahead, but always made me feel like I had no idea what I was even doing at this job. So, no, I ended up, the best way to describe what I do is like, I consulted on problems that governments had. So like Las Vegas shooting. So like,
How old were you?
I was in my early 20s. So like there'd be like a mass shooting somewhere. It started with me working on school shootings, and trying to reduce those, and then it ended up with like larger events. So this is like, analytic camera. We bought this like large analytic camera company. And I had to do the go-to-market on that after. It was like a few $100 million. Well, that one was a $2 billion acquisition, but I got assigned to like doing the go-to-market after that. And, so I was trying to figure out ways to use analytic cameras along with these other teams to like identify shooters. And deploy them into different things and work with other technology groups, be that like things like SCADA, which is like encrypted radio controllers for like critical infrastructure. Things like radio technology, like encrypted LMR devices that like the military and the police use, like how to backhaul data securely, how to set up like different physical security setups and things like that for different installations. And it was just interesting. And I ended up getting involved with some different organizations like the ATF and the FBI and those kind of guys. And I'm not like working with them directly, but like I'm helping them solve kind of big problems.
I got
interesting.
two questions on that. One, what do you think it was about you, a guy in his early 20s, that they decided to place so much trust in you? And two, with like the severity of that material, how did you handle the weight and responsibility of that on your shoulders?
Honestly, for the first one, I think it's the same thing as like the Best Buy Samsung thing. I was really enthusiastic about it. I got in there on a pretty average kind of like sales job, to be honest with you. And it ended up just obsessing over this portfolio of products and digging into the deeper things we were doing and some of the federal projects that we were working on. And I ended up like becoming a product expert across like a variety of things we were doing. So I just became this internal resource at our corporate headquarters for a vast amount of really detailed and complex technology that we were using. So, and then as you become a resource for all these people, then people start pulling you into different things. Go in this meeting, brief these people on how this works, go talk to this division in Israel, go talk to this division in Poland, go figure out how this works, go talk to this group. Oh, they're working with this federal agency. Okay, get read in on this so you can brief these people. And it just kind of worked in a really strange way that was kind of, because it wasn't even really my boss. Like my boss was more of like a sales manager, and it was like it was more like people just started using me as a resource, and it started pulling my career in a very strange direction. So then when they started doing these larger acquisitions, they identified me to be able to do the go-to-market there. And I think when they hired me, what they said is that I was very entrepreneurial. I mean, maybe this comes from the startup background, but they hired me to do 0 to 1 specifically. So it just ended up being a lot of 0 to 1 after these large acquisitions.
So you come in from this sales position, you almost end up like a project and product manager.
Yeah.
Where does that culminate? Sorry, where does that finish up?
God, we built this company called Vigilant. It was it was $500 million. It was a license plate recognition technology, and I started overlaying on their team, which like mostly along their senior leadership that built this startup that we acquired. And they wanted to hire me over there for like 4 times my salary that I was currently making, because they thought I was making a lot more than I was making. And this became like a very crazy internal debacle between like my boss's boss and their team that was just acquired. I mean, like, can't hire someone from our corporate offices to work at your company, which we just acquired, And then that kind of got in my little brain at the time of being like, wait, I'm being underpaid. I could do that. Because I had no concept of what I was doing. Like, you have to understand that, like, I was doing go-to-markets on giant companies that we acquired, and I was consulting on giant projects. And I understand these projects are like tens of millions of dollars of like sales. Individual sales were tens of millions of dollars. But I just didn't get it. Like, I'm like, okay, this is like normal. So basically I got some other jobs. COVID happened. Well, I got some other jobs internally. They wanted me to start training their internal teams. I ended up training like a few hundred inside sales and external sales teams on like how certain products work. And it was incredibly boring. Like, I wanted to pull my hair out, fucking boring. Because I'm like, what do I do all day? Like, I get on a call, I listen to those call recordings. I want to be out there. Like, before that, I was like with the ATF in like Louisiana, talking about gun crime, trying to like clean up homicides and like doing counterterror. And I'm like, this is fascinating. And what I really want to do with my career is like, I met a friend who is the special agent in charge at the ETF, and I'm like, I want to go do direct action. Like, I want to go work at an agency. And he's like, what you should do instead, Josh, is that we're actually spinning off this company that, like, one of the companies we acquired to private equity, and you should actually come there. So I go there, and I leave my job because, like, they're promising me a bunch more money. And the CEO is just a complete and utter buffoon. And I realize now this is being posted publicly, and that person is still very much like, so
We can cut this if you want. I don't mind.
that's fine. So yeah, all love to you guys. I kind of realized, I'm like, if this guy can be CEO of a company, then I can be CEO of a company.
Okay.
Yeah, and so I was kind of shadow working on like my first startup at the time, which, by the way, retrospectively was a complete and utter disaster. So like in the background, I'm building like Summarize It, and doing like some of my college friends with that while still working. And I remember telling the CEO about it, like when I was getting hired onto that, and he's like, "Oh, like that's some quaint, silly little thing." Like very dismissive of like what I was working on. Like, this wasn't a challenge to him, you know what I'm saying? So he'll still hire me, and I'm like, okay. But I really believed in myself, and I just got more conviction in myself as I worked there. And I'm like, these people seem like they raised money. So anyhow, I ended up pursuing that company. That company ends up. Well, one, do you want me to pause? I've kind of over answered your question.
No, we're leading on. Are we talking about Incued at this point?
This is a company called Summarize It, and it was the idea of it was that there should be a streamlined approach to setting up an LLC and getting a payment processor integrated really quickly, which right now I don't think is that novel. I think there's a variety of these, but at the time there wasn't a lot of offerings of that specifically.
I think Stripe does it specifically, as you can set up an LLC and have it all connected like that.
Yeah. I think they acquired a company that enables that. I'm not sure what the name of it is. But at the time, this didn't exist. Well, Stripe existed, but the all-in thing didn't exist. So I'm like, oh, we'll do that like TurboTax, and it'll be really interesting. It'll be really fast. Turns out it cost a shitload of money to try to figure out. I had no access to like venture capitalists or like any of these things. I just had no understanding of how you raise money or even go about this. But we ended up building it. And I like to think of it now as a complete disaster, but I learned so much during that process of like doing this thing and getting out there and trying to build it and getting like first customers and like the software sucking and then just draining my bank account trying to build this. And at some point, I had a co-founder. His name is Amir. I convinced him on at a 4th of July party to quit his job at Accenture, and I would quit my job then at the Spinout company from Motorola to go to this Summarize It thing, and we get a bunch of friends and we would do it. And anyhow, we drain our bank accounts down to like 0, and we end up basically having to fire everyone. And Amir's like ready to move home with his parents, and I'm like have a few months of runway left, and we're just like, okay, we're all in, but this idea sucks. So we start like looking around really quickly, just like panicking. We're like, we want to solve something different. And so we ended up doing all these big sessions, just talked to a ton of people, and we're like, okay, we're going to do this thing. So talk to the lawyer, change the company. We were going to just change the company's name. Ended up creating a C Corp, make Incued like overnight. And then it was just a blur, like the next 4 or 5 months, like building this company. Like it really resonated with people. Like the idea we attached on to, because at the end of Summarize It, I ended up figuring out how to talk to like venture capitalists and stuff like that and getting their feedback. And this idea kind of came out of a lot of things I was talking to them about time. And then I'm trying to think of the best way to explain this. Incued, what we did is we did real-time financial data for private markets. And ultimately where my conceptualization of that came from was a lot of stuff I was doing at Motorola had to do with extremely large data sets regarding things that were being used. I want to call it, the industry is called ISR or C4 ISR, which stands for Command, Control, Computers, Communication, Intelligence, Surveillance, Reconnaissance. But basically, it's big data sets for solving crimes, things like that. And I was thinking about all the information that exists with regard to, at this time, like a bunch of money's printed in the economy. The economy is really wonky during COVID. And I'm like, it's really difficult for us to understand how these small businesses are performing because we don't actually gather the data on the private market assets. So how do you target like loans, grants, these kind of government resources, or how does an investor best understand how one of these assets is performing in between reporting periods in a super volatile financial environment without having these insights? And that was the idea where Incued came from. So when we started making it, it resonated a lot with people because it was a very economic, uncertain time. And a lot of the investors were feeling a lot of anxiety regarding their portfolio companies and understanding like, okay, the company is valued at this, but like their revenue, like where's their revenue? How much cash they actually have? And there's a lot of concern over people lying and people misrepresenting the truth. This is coming off of like, I don't think that FTX was before this. FTX was definitely in the middle of Incued, but there was a lot of like very large fraud things. You can think about like Elizabeth Holmes and things like that, and just fabrication in this asset class, specifically during the zero interest rate period. So, you know, we ended up doing that. I basically burned my money down to nothing.
Can I ask it? Sorry, can I interrupt you? I can ask a question on that.
Yeah.
You're really just striking something in my brain when you're talking about like bringing this source of truth. Can I ask, did that just come out of the conversations and being like there is a need for this product? Or was there any part of you where there was like a degree of morality that you wanted to bring to it as well?
It was
Where
more
did that come from?
because like it felt wrong to me that I was fairly upset the fact that people can just kind of lie and have financial wins. Like it really bothered me, and it's like I might have I don't know. It felt unjust, and so I really wanted people to be honest. And like I'm skipping part of the story. Like at some point, like after Motorola ended up advising an accelerator and helping build a venture capital fund and building like a giant founders community in Chicago. So I was like very involved in this when I was trying to summarize it, just because I was trying to get like attention. I was trying to like learn this whole industry. So what I was realizing in all of that, like when building that venture capital fund, was that there was just a lot of people that seemed to be very dishonest, and it bothered me a lot. And I don't know. And I felt like there was a lot of things at the time that like people were losing trust in the government. People were losing trust in each other. There's a lot of misinformation, disinformation going around regarding like, be it, things that were happening just in the country at the time, right? So this is more of a cultural thing that I kind of just wanted to have trust, at least in our economic system and at least in like what we're doing here.
We had a quick discussion before this where we were talking about music and what music motivates us and how it makes us feel, right? And we're talking about the difference between happy music and then sad music, where you kind of like, it's like, fuck yeah, I can do this, fuck everyone else. Like it kind of empowers you. I want to kind of draw a parallel to this.
Yeah.
It sounds like a lot of what you were operating out of was kind of vengeance and like anger and bringing that to the market. Like how good was that as a source of motivation, and have you changed your kind of source of motivation now?
Now I have. At the time, like there's a lot of things that happened that like I can't talk about at my previous job that kind of caused me to feel that way. So yeah, like the truth became like a really big sticking point for me overall. And I don't know, and I think I was an angry guy because I felt. I'll tell you why, actually. So when I was like in my latter half of college, I ended up I was at the gym, and I was very big into fitness at the time, and I was doing a squat. I had chalk on my hands. Chalk ended up going in my nose during the squat. I ended up crushing my spine by dropping like 175 pounds on my neck. And so I was kind of just an angry person because a lot of the time, not like angry in an external way to other people, but angry on the inside. Because I was going to work every day, and a lot of my money was just going towards like going to the doctor, stuff like that, recovering, because I didn't have the money to like, one, I'm terrified of the idea of debt, and two, like, or not from a business standpoint, but like on a personal standpoint. So I was going to work every day. I was in a lot of pain. I had like something called occipital neuralgia, which is basically like a burning sensation behind your eyeballs. It was holding my spine, so I couldn't stand up really well. It was really exhausting, really painful. And I think that a lot of the physical pain manifested in itself in a way where I was angry at the world, and I wanted to fix the world because I was angry at it because I felt I was wronged, by the world itself, not by like another person. So I just think I was an angry person on the inside at the time. I don't know if that answers that.
It did. When did that change, and why did that change?
Post exit.
Was that just the stress being lifted off and like the ability to kind of recreate, rediscover yourself without all that pressure there?
Yeah, like, sometimes I think about, you ever seen Lord of the Rings?
Love Lord of the Rings.
Fantastic. Like, so, like at the very end of the journey, like, Frodo goes on this adventure and he's kind of comfortable in the Shire and all these things, and he goes on this big adventure that he doesn't necessarily want to go on. And when he comes back, he ends up learning that, like, the Shire isn't really where he wants to spend his time, and he actually wants to go away of the elves. You know what I'm saying? And I think I felt like I got back to the Shire at the very end of it. And I actually, I went through all the pain and the hardship and stuff like that, but I couldn't relate anymore. So, I started find myself kind of journey.
What do you think the land of the elves looks like? What does that utopia look like for you?
I think it looks like peace. I think a lot of us just want peace. I think it's kind of crazy. I think what a lot of people just want is like some land and like a decent house and like a family and kids and like to like a community where they can like love people and just feel safe.
Yeah.
And I think we live in a really chaotic world that demands a lot of you, and it's very difficult to feel safe.
I agree. I think it's a misconception. It's like a lie that we're fed by media, by social media, by movies, TV, whatever, that the most important thing is money and status and power. And if you don't have any of that, then you don't see the reality of it. But I've spent enough time around enough people with money and status and power to know that it really doesn't move the needle much on how happy they are. It's a completely different journey, like out with that entirely, which is really interesting to see. I wish there was more media that, I guess, exemplified that and like projected a message that we should be looking for different things rather than these false idols.
Yeah, I think it's tough because I spent a lot of time thinking about it. Like after the exit, I did a lot of traveling, and I promised my fiance. It's funny, we wrote a Spinout, but I promised my fiance that I'd take like the year off. Yeah, it's like I'll just do casual stuff. I'll help him out. Like I'll chill. That didn't end up happening.
Good luck.
Yeah, it lasted a month. Literally. Yeah.
Been there.
But
Been there.
It's I think it's because the content doesn't resonate with a lot of people. Because I think a lot of people are very frustrated about their circumstances, so they want like the grind set kind of like motivating content. And they want to believe that the money or the boat or the car or whatever the hell will give them the thing they're looking for on the inside. And I think it's something that they have to discover themselves. It just like, and I think they were all wrapped. Use the word false idols, but I do think they were all wrapped up into a world of quite literal idolatry. And it's probably it's kind of sickening, actually.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think the only way out is through, right? It's like you kind of get two options: is you can make the money and have a bit of status and power and realize that it's not everything. It'd be way more difficult to never have any of that and kind of take the aesthetics approach and be like, oh, I'm just going to renounce all of that and live on the streets in my cloak. Was it aesthetics? Some sort of Greeks or something? I can't remember the name of them, where they just renounced all like worldly pleasures.
Yeah, there was a lot of Greek philosophers did. Like this is like the whole thing of like Diogenes and whatnot.
And that's way more difficult to do, right?
Yeah.
It's way easier to like build a business, get a bit of money, status, power, realize it's not everything, than just be like, I've never had that, I'm just gonna renounce it all, right?
Yeah, I think it's a biologic need because like at the very bottom, like I've only experienced being a male, but like at the baseline of it is like you have a desire as a organism to procreate, right? So it's like if you want to procreate, you have to show to others that you have the ability to provide, So then like these are like, if I can provide, then I would be a good husband. And if I can, then I can have offspring, and then my genetic material lives on forever or lives on
Hmm.
longer. So I think it's a really core, like, lizard brain thing, you know?
That's true. That's true. It's just, I guess, it's being able to discern between what is an ability to provide and what's just flash, like what's just kind of like the really fancy watch or the really fancy car. I mean, yeah, it's a biological signal, but I guess there's degrees to it as well, right? Of how
Yeah,
much it matters.
it's one of those interesting things where, like, the perception of what rich looks like versus what actually rich looks like.
Yeah.
Like the guy, like, I've never been impressed in my life by a Lamborghini or someone with a fancy jacket or anything like that. I've always been wanted to be the person who doesn't have to wear a suit. Not the
Yes.
suit seems like, a straight jacket, not a piece of armor. Um,
Yes. I'm in shorts currently,
yeah, I got
although you can't
sweatpants
see it.
on, and whatever
All
the
right.
heck this is. So
We're matching today.
yeah,
We
exactly.
meant this.
Vibes, dude. So I don't know, but I think it's like people get force fed this idea of rich, and
Mm.
then it takes over their brain where they want to copy that thing.
Yeah.
Whatever influencer it is that rents the Lamborghini to say that they're a millionaire and whatever. And I always found those so funny because it's like, specifically the Instagram or TikTok rich people, quote unquote rich people, where it's like,
Yeah.
okay, if you had that amount of assets, how are you possibly leveraging those assets in a way to, like, create more value by wasting your time in this kind of content?
Yeah.
Like, you should be, like, operating your family office and, like, I don't know, finding really unique deals, or probably you're very, very quiet and you wear a t-shirt and shorts. So
Yeah.
whatever. But most people don't, those people don't grow on trees. And,
It's true. I think this is my last thing I'm going to say on it before we move on to Spinout. It's only taken us 37 fucking minutes to get here.
we can do another.
I think for me, what it shows is like a lack of originality and a lack of independent thought, right? Because if you're just going after the same status symbols that everyone else is going on based on the monetary value attached to them, just shows that you've got no taste, in my opinion, because you're just going for that because other people have thought that out for you rather than like what I actually like, what actually matters to me, like what's unique about me, what music do I like, do I want a big house or a small house? Like, I think that's what it shows to me when I see the really fancy watch or the really fancy car.
Yeah, it's I don't know. It's peacocking, and I think that a lot of people are really scared to be themselves because it's like, when you're around a bunch of really insecure people, and I think a lot of people that seem very secure, like the most secure seeming people in a lot of ways, are like riddled by anxiety on the inside.
Yeah.
Um, Anyhow, I think a lot of them are very concerned about being the peg that stands up, because the peg that stands up gets hammered down, specifically like in a
Mm.
corporate environment. A lot of times, like, creativity isn't necessarily rewarded for the vast amount of people. I think truly creative people find their own way and create their own hierarchies. But I've read some studies that show that,
Yes.
like, inside of a hierarchy, creative people basically only work at the top or the bottom, and the in between feels unbelievably suffocating for them.
Yeah. It's managerial, right?
Yeah.
Right. Enough of us talking about esoteric things.
Yeah.
We talked about you being a consultant earlier on, and something that really struck me about Spinout Studios is your tagline. I'm going to read it out
Yeah.
and give me a bit of explanation. We help you innovate with your existing assets, turn dormant IP, data, playbooks, and more into massive profits. Led by exited founders and world class innovators, not consultants.
Yeah.
Tell me more.
So I think the perspective is like, consultants, like when I think of consultants, I don't even think of me in my previous job really as a consultant, though in some ways I probably was. I think of the consultants as like your average MBA at Deloitte, McKinsey, Accenture, BCG, whatever it may be. And they have a lot of ideas, but they've never operated a business before. and they kind of go in tandem with like the private equity guys who, they analyze businesses, these kind of things, and say, I'm going to mash together, I don't know, a bunch of HVAC businesses and somehow create more value. We're going to enable it with AI. But they've never built a company. They've never worked with startups. They don't actually understand, like, they don't have this level of creativity to create something truly beautiful that can stand on the marketplace. Where, like, and the other thing about Spinout, like, the interesting thing about exited founders is these people are, at least in my opinion, so much more talented than that MBA that you really can't hire them. Like, if you go and work, if you are a mid-sized corporation and you say, or even a large corporation, you say, I sent your come up with ideas for me, you're going to get a bunch of people that have worked in the corporate world for a very long time, that have had, decent success, but they're just not what founders are, specifically what successful founders are. And so my whole thesis is just, if given the unique proprietary information of a corporation or like a hanging off division of it or unique data, etc., we can turn that into something truly beautiful that a team of consultants at like a consulting firm with all their presentations and all their decks would never even imagine, So.
3 months in,
Yeah.
what companies are you working with so far?
So we had a company called Forward Newsletters. You actually talked to Ben before this.
Oh yeah, Ben released today actually his episode.
Yeah. So turning that into JoinBreaker.ai. So this is taking a really great newsletter agency. Ben is utterly fantastic at, he's just a genius with emails, right?
I agree.
And so if you bring in like some really good exited founders, like my friend Moose is working on it, I'm working on it, and some other people. So we can transform that whole thing into a self-serve application with a really interesting algorithm behind it. It's very, very powerful in like an incredibly short amount of time. And I think this business will have venture-esque returns without needing venture capital-esque money. And we've done it faster than I think most teams would be able to do it. That company was launched, I don't know, I think it's like 6 months old, and it's a profitable tech company, which is like pretty great actually. We have a company called MobileArm that isn't launched yet. It's a robotics company that's was a spin out from a cabinet and countertop factory in Wisconsin. And this came from them, like Trump administration wanted to reindustrialize the United States, but they also wanted to deport a lot of the labor who would work in those industrial facilities. So they needed very specific robotics to work on wood and take over these jobs to do about like maybe $15, $20 an hour jobs. And a lot of people had these ideas about humanoid robots being able to do it, but the reality is humanoid robots just aren't there. And there's a lot of physics problems around like humanoid robots and their liftability and these kind of things. So we're making these very capable industrial robots that are wheeled with arms on them that can take over a lot of these functions and operate machines and these kind of things. And then the third one I can say is in the intelligence security sector, but I can't necessarily tell you what it does. But yeah, it's an extremely interesting project for some government clients.
Are you investing more in the founder themselves or the idea?
It's like, the way I think about it is like, we're really good at product design, engineering, go to market as like a strategy side, and we're relying on the operator or the founder to have a deep understanding of that vertical and have distribution into that vertical. And really the tribal knowledge plus distribution is what we're looking for in the founder. So someone who's like unbelievably obsessed with a very specific thing.
Are you looking to invest specifically in verticals, or you believe in like horizontal companies too?
My specific, like what I'm looking at is like 3-year exits. So it's like almost like making the whole company as a sphere. Like it is one product with one main feature and maybe some supporting features, but one core feature for one very specific ICP that is obsessively niche. And I'm not shooting for $1 billion valuations. I'm not shooting for any of those things. Just I want I don't want to call them hyper niche products, but niche where they exist within the lower middle market to solve a niche lower middle market problem, not like the whole market problem.
That's understandable. I want to get more specific with the specific sectors or companies you're looking out for. When you're doing research, you're trying to get in touch with companies. Like, what do you think's got the most potential moving forward if you're going to get really specific in terms of industry, type of product, SaaS, like whatever it is?
The more boring it is, the better. Like, when I mean boring, like something I was exploring relatively recently was like lawn care businesses, like robotics, like robotic drones for like lawn care businesses. Like, I think that's fascinating. Like robotic window washers, really cool. Basically, if there is a job that like private equity is probably rolling up a bunch of like small businesses on, where the labor is like the most expensive part of. So like, okay, you have two sectors. You have lower middle market industrial, which you can think of as, again, a small factory, lawn care business, anything kind of manual, like power washing, who cares?
HVAC, whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then you have the other side, which are your traditional agency businesses, which are also in the lower middle market, but probably like we're talking like, they do, I don't know, $1 to $10 million a year, kind of where the industrial business is probably doing closer to like $50 or $100 million a year on that side. And they're serving some hyper niche, being like, we do public relations for, I don't know, hairstylists. This is a terrible example, but this kind of thing where you can rip out a lot of the labor. They have a really good playbook for how they're delivering value, and we can turn that into a vertical AI company quite easily using their existing customer base, and deliver a streamlined product that actually delivers more value. I can go into more detail if you want about like specific thesis, but those are kind of the two areas: is lower middle market industrial and lower middle market agencies, service business.
I guess I'm interested how you came to that conclusion in the first place. How did you identify that?
It's kind of funny. Like, I've advised a lot of companies through Alchemist Accelerator. I was going to move out to San Francisco and work with them after the exit. And my fiance was going to take this role but it doesn't really matter. We were going to move to California post the exit. And she ended up getting an opportunity from one of my friends to help run his family office. And so we ended up staying here. And I was kind of just thinking about Chicago in general and the broader Midwest. And like, I'm like, okay, if I'm going to live here, what do the coasts not care about? Like, I'm not going to be around as much information about like, really, really deep, trendy stuff that I really like about the Bay Area and about Boston. But the thing that they're missing out on is that they're not going to the factories I'm going to, and they're not going to farms, and they're not going to like these small little services companies, which are actually like a vast one of the U.S. economy. They're just not venture backable. So if you move like down the needle and you say, okay, our outcome is not looking for a venture capital-esque return. We're not looking for 1 in 20 companies to have this crazy.
What are you looking for?
I'm looking for like the vast majority of these to exit in 3 years for a multiple that is like 4 to 5x revenue, not like 11 to 12x revenue. So like if you have like private equity valuations over here and you have venture capital valuations like over here, we're like closer to private equity valuations, but like elevated private equity. You know what I'm saying? But it came from like working with this. Like if I'm staying here, so what is here? You got to play to the advantages we're at. I wanted for a long time. I wanted Chicago to be San Francisco, and it's just not. It's a land of private equity and commodities trading. So I leaned into it. And when I leaned into it, I can combine like my knowledge from like working at these accelerators and building tech companies and all the West Coast stuff that I was enthralled in into the traditional private equity landscape of Chicago, and I thought that what they were missing. And I don't have like a formal finance background. I'm just a guy who made a fintech and sold it.
Talk to me about the difference in founders between what you're doing now and what you noticed in San Francisco. What have the people in San Francisco got over the people here, and what have the people here got over the people in San Francisco?
It's culture and it's tribal knowledge, right? So it's like if you go out in Chicago, you're meeting a lot of people who you know, there's kind of two spectrums. Because I'm kind of in a different group at this point, so I'm a little whatever. Broadly, it's a lot of corporate workers, a lot of people that do strategy inside of a big corporation, global marketing, global sales, this kind of thing. Older company, and it's a lot of private equity. It's a lot of rolling up legacy businesses, things that baby boomers and stuff like that made. It's more conservative. It's not conservative necessarily politically, but it's conservative from a risk appetite perspective. If I were to define it really well, it's like you have New York doing public market stuff, and you have San Francisco doing venture capital, and you have Chicago doing a lot of private equity, So it's just the city is kind of focused around a different asset class more broadly. And some people could take, that is not a full truth. There's private equity all across the country, obviously. But it's what, people think about. So they think about those kind of risk parameters, those kind of returns, and those kind of industries. San Francisco, the dreams are just bigger. I don't know how to put it. New York is just more creative. It's genuinely more creative. It's the reason that people are doing more fashion and ads there more generally, and people are making CPG brands about food here, But there's also, the thing about Chicago people miss is there's a lot of deep research here. Out of Argonne National Lab, there's a lot of quantum research happening. And because of the amount of lower middle market activity in the industrial sector here, it's a really good testing spot for robotics.
Okay.
This is really where, the industrial Midwest, more broadly, is where the robotics will be implemented. So it's where the factory owners are actually at. Essentially, it's more capital dense. So and it's also more expensive to live there. So people are just taking a lot bigger swings. And I'd say broadly, there's more talented engineering talent there. Or more, yeah. And then here it's, a lot of sales, a lot of sales guys, a lot of finance guys, a lot of consultants, a lot of strategy people, that kind of stuff. Hopefully I answered that for you.
You did. Yeah. We talk a lot about AI in this podcast, but you're one of the few people that does actually have somewhat of a bit of experience with robotics specifically. Yeah. And I think Musk is saying that by 2035 or 2030, it's going to be the biggest industry or the second biggest industry or whatever in the world.
Yeah.
What's your perspective on robotics? What do you think is coming in the next 5-10 years?
I mean, dude, it's so hard to tell the future. I always think that people are really good. People are very bad about a 10-year timeline or a 5-year timeline. So I'll say kind of broadly where I think people are right and where people are wrong. I think the idea that humanoid robots are going to do absolutely everything is silly. Your humanoid robots, I think, are going to be really good for at the house, nursing homes, basically a really advanced Roomba. What I see from people on the street, I don't remember bird scooters and stuff like that, where the scooters was getting tossed into the ocean and lakes. That people are aggressively bad to these things when introduced to society. So, and even the little food delivery robots are abused en masse. So I think it's really difficult to justify that kind of CapEx expense when people are so bad to those things in the public. So I think a lot of them will live in your home. And with regard to factories and stuff like that, I think it'll look more like not one-to-one, but more like Star Wars, where there's different drones and droids and stuff like that made for specific purposes. So let's test this thesis for a second. So I could have a humanoid robot sitting inside of a forklift, right? Driving a forklift. But it's probably smarter just to have a self-driving forklift.
Yes.
Or I could have a robot sitting on a thing washing a window all day. But why not just have a robot where its form and function is to wash windows? So I'm a very big proponent that there will be lots of humanoid robots out there, but most robotics will be niche robotics that are created to solve a very specific job function that they will do all day. Yeah.
What do you think about the epidemic of loneliness, of people spending more time by themselves on social media, about the future of robotics and the role of love, perhaps? and filling that gap?
That's hard. I think people always desire people, and I think that people are moving farther apart. And I think what we can really hope for is some kind of third space kind of being created. Like, I didn't talk about this a lot, but like one of the first things that we did, or I did when I was young, was help my friend Josh Weber create a company called Gamers HQ, which is like a Korean style PC cafe in Northern Illinois. And it was really magical to like have a third space where a bunch of nerds can hang out. And I think a lot of people don't have those third spaces where they can explore their interests and they can kind of be themselves. And everything is monetized in a way where just to hang out with other humans, you're in kind of a commercial decision. I don't know. I'll put it this way. I don't think robotics helps with it, but I say that broadly social media is the thing that's hurting us. Like, I'm sure that people are falling in love and infatuated with AI and like on the fringes. And I'm sure people will fall in love and find affection for a robot. But it isn't it, you know? And the idea that we'll have more free time to actually spend with each other is probably a fleeting thought, because it's like if you have all this productivity gain, like productivity can go like this, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you as a human will have more free time. It just means you'll be overly allocated to do more productive tasks, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't have like anything warm and sunny to say about this. I used to, growing up, we were talking about stuff. I used to, like, technology was like magic. And I still think that technology can be really magical when you think of it as like an art form creating things. But, like, I think there's a lot of things that we have to do as a society to understand how to live with robotics and AI. And I think that this idea that it'll just make it better is not an honest perspective to have. It's like, I want my companies to make as much money as any other person, but
yeah,
like,
I think about this a lot. You ever listen to Harry Stebbings, 20VC?
I've heard his podcast, yeah.
He talks about this a lot, where like you hear all these AI CEOs and private equity managers and VCs come on, and they talk about like the future of work, and they always get kind of pose the question of like, what's going to happen with all these jobs that will be displaced, right? Like, where are they going to go? And they always have some sort of like a politician's answer around it, where they're like, oh, the Industrial Revolution happened and we found new jobs, but I can't really tell you where anyone's going to go. What's your perspective on that? Like, what does the future of work look like with all this potential displacement coming?
I don't know. I don't know. Like, we're in a situation where, like, the French government, and this isn't meant as like a political stance in any capacity. Like, but like, so the French government is like going through prime ministers like clockwork. You know what I'm saying? They have, like, you know, it's the entitlement programs, right? It's like, you know, the baby boomer generation was very big. There's less of us. I don't know. Like, we have to figure that out as a planet. This isn't just like the United States or the UK. It's we backfilled with a lot of immigration to fill a lot of roles that we didn't want to necessarily take. We can maybe backfill those jobs with robotics in the future. But ultimately, people are living a lot longer. And you have countries like Germany or Japan or wherever you want to name, like China's dealing with this as well. And we're all dealing with some underlying civil unrest because of these population pyramids. So it's like, it's a really human issue. You know, there's progressively less young people in the system than there are old people. And that's the equation we need to figure out for humanity. And if the people that own the robotics and such are the ones profiting from the robots, and the kid graduating from high school, you know, how does he get a job? Then he's starting off in a really tough position, or she's starting off in a really tough position. And I've talked to a lot of my friends who are like fairly successful founders. And one of the questions that comes up is, what do their kids do for a living, or how to prepare their kids to live a life? You know, not everyone in the world like will still want to go to ballets or theater or or we'll still want to hear humans sing or buy paintings, or like these kind of things. Like, but not every single person can be an artist.
No.
Not, and the reality is like, if we can't all create and all consume, and it just works out perfectly.
No. You talked about this earlier on. We're talking about what people want. You said peace.
Yeah.
I think people want purpose, right? And I think for a lot of people, they find purpose in the work that they do and the jobs that they have. And when we currently wipe that away for a lot of people, I don't know what society and culture looks like.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest mistakes we made as a society was like during COVID, everyone was like working from home, and this idea of like forcing everyone back to the offices. Like, granted, you can create greater levels of productivity in an office, and like I thought about this a lot, where it's like, your early employees really need to be on site because they learn from being next to people, so it is quite important. But like, I don't know, we can spread out a little bit, like specifically in the U.S. Like, this is a global problem.
I think you guys are specifically like uniquely disadvantaged though.
Yeah.
I don't know what the statistics are, but in terms of actually getting to your work, because of your lack of public transport and how long the commutes are, it's like a uniquely American perspective that like back to work is such a terrifying thing. I don't think it's as terrifying of a notion anywhere else in the world.
That's interesting. I guess I have a very America-centric perspective, right? And I haven't thought about this a lot with an external perspective. Yeah. I mean, that's probably the case. I just don't know.
That's just my intuition. I don't know what the actual statistics show on that, but that's what it feels like. I'm a proponent. Like, I work by myself, and maybe it's just because I'm on the other side of this, where I'm in fucking WeWork by myself, and all of my coworkers are all over the world, and I don't get to see them, and I hate it.
Yeah.
If it was up to me, I'd have everyone in the office, and I could work and collaborate because I work better like that. But I can understand the other perspective, right? If you've got a fucking 2-hour commute, you don't want to do that every day. That's 4 hours out of your day, every single day.
Yeah, I guess what I'm thinking about is like, so your average like corporate employee, right, where they live in the city, so they spend very high amounts of their income to live in the city to be close to the office. And then one day they want to like have children and have a family, right? But they can't buy a home to have those kids in that city. So to your point, they need to move outside the city to do that. So you have to go to the suburbs, something like that. But by actually allowing them to spread out more into like these more rural areas where there is space, I think that we could probably collapse housing, or not collapse, but bring down housing pricing for the average person by not everyone having to be so close to the offices physically.
I hadn't thought about that before.
Yeah.
It's a good perspective. I love that we've went wayward with this conversation.
Yeah.
And I love the amount of topics we've covered. And I want to finish off with a question I ask every single one of my guests. And I encourage you to take like 5-10 seconds to think about it before you answer. And also just kind of take it how you want to take it as well.
Okay.
Why do you do what you do?
I don't know how to live without creating. I think that I would be distraught if I wasn't able to create. And I think that building technology is like a paintbrush for me, where it's like innovating and being able to build these products and technology, like it feels good. I'm not a particularly good actual painter.
Either.
So
is that one behind you done by you?
No.
Is that an original?
No. This is from some lady in not some lady. I don't know her name, but she lives in South Florida. But yeah, this is just my artistic medium, I suppose. And I'd love to explore other artistic mediums, but there's something about problem solving, especially with really hard, dense problems, that I'm just absolutely in love with. There's something about solving problems that can make people's lives better that makes me really happy on the inside. And so I'd rather spend my life doing that.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Josh, I want to thank you for your time And if people want to learn more about what you're doing, who you are, how do they go about doing that?
I have a LinkedIn. Actually, you know what? I have a Twitter that I have never. I think I've posted it like 5 times ever. I might have like 50 followers. Go follow that. Let's make a thing. It's Josh Furstoss, and yeah. But LinkedIn is probably where. But go to the Twitter. Let's
fuck the
figure out
LinkedIn. Let's blow up the Twitter.
Yeah.
LinkedIn sucks. Let's make it happen.
Sweet. Okay.
All right, Josh. Thank you.
Yeah. Bye.